North Pole, flying the B64. Ready?
Yep.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back with a Christmas-themed rocket that's going to transform from a North Pole into a candy cane shape. We're going to start with an overview of how it will work. This is after the first flight here. This one side with the white string, that's actually a piece of dental floss. It's going to serve as a burned string to release tension. On the opposite side of the rocket is an elastic string, which is going to provide tension. So once that white string there running down that side burns, the elastic will take over and pull the entire thing into the candy cane shape. You can see sort of the spring that we have set there. We have the two pods on the bottom. Now those are going to separate and come down under their own streamer, and then they're going to release the parachute. You can see that sort of tightly bundled parachute there under the one and the streamer under the second pod with those tied together. Now if we simulate burning this white dental floss, you can see the elastic springs into shape and makes it a candy cane. A couple static tests here just to show the action of those top few vertebrae, if you will, up there. And the next thing we're going to look at is how we managed to make these hinges. So we didn't cut all the way through the tube, and we put a little bit of a separation, and we wood glued down 2 strings of Kevlar to give us a little bit of axial support, but still allow that bend to give us the articulation there. Now onto the build portion. We made a template for the fins to match the ratios of a candy cane. We wanted to keep this one relatively straightforward, mostly manual builds, even though it's relatively complicated. Leave the 3D printers and the laser cutters largely out of this. So we make that template, we cut the fins out of balsa wood, then we're going to go ahead and put that leading edge bevel down and sand those smooth, and then make sure they all match the same shape. We did also do some sanding filler just to give a little extra strength, and then we're going to take them over to our art department for paint here. Just a simple candy cane design with sort of a greenfield background. Then we block off a balsa wood block for the nose cone. We take that outside and just use the orbital sander to bring that down to rough shape, and then put a shoulder on it. Next we're going to make a bulkhead. It's going to go right below that first vertebrae there of the candy cane. Then with some assistance here from the rest of the team, we're going to sand that down to shape. Then we're going to start making the individual vertebrae here. We want to make sure that we couldn't slide each joint too far sideways, and we also need to be able to set the bend of the candy cane. So this is what's going to allow us to do that. Just simple balsa wood sticks glued in there. We taper the front edges so that the individual vertebrae can close easier. Then we're going to anchor the shock cord and go ahead and put that first vertebrae in place there. And then we're going to proceed and glue in each successive one to finish those joints out. This blunt syringe with the transfer tip really did prove invaluable for getting in and doing this fiddly stuff inside of the tube, so I definitely would recommend those. Off camera here, we took the Kevlar shock cord and we wrapped around those individual vertebrae, and then we glued it in place, and that's what's going to set the angle of each of these joints so that we end up with something that matches that candy cane shape. That's going across the cross member there of each vertebrae. Then we're just going to go ahead and anchor that in along with the nose cone. We were initially hoping to be able to do rear ejection and fit the parachute in. It definitely didn't fit with a normal rear ejection mount, so we tried an asymmetric one. We printed another centering ring to force it far off the center to sort of bias all of our side to one side to see if we could fit the parachute in. But the whole thing just sort of eventually proved impractical. So we just ended up abandoning it. And we just document here to share our failures. So we're going to move on and make a standard 18mm motor mount. We're going to have 2 centering rings and a front ring that's going to be a thrust ring, and just a standard motor clip. We're going to use black powder motors for this one. It's all relatively light. Then we're going to move on and we're going to make 2 pods to hold the parachute, and then its own streamer. We put an extra long streamer on this, not because of recovery speed, more just to give us a chance of finding it in the field and tracking it. And I will say, without this, we would have definitely lost it on that first flight. We're going to sand the sides of those flat, do a quick test fit with the parachute itself. Then we're going to cut and glue 2 balsa wood sticks together, and then go ahead and taper those down into sort of half cones there. We did put a little bit of an internal curve on that so it would fit a little more flush to the body tube. Now we're going to go ahead and glue in the motor mount. One thing you can see here too is that we've added a high temperature primer to the inside of that and went ahead and put some vents so that all the ejection gases are just vented out sideways, but we still get that delay for the various burn strings. The black you see there spilling over is the mess we made with that high temperature primer. Next we come in and we use the CA glue to tack the fins in place. And we check to make sure they're all nice and plumb and straight with the aeroshell there. And then of course we'll come in with fillets of glue and rotate it around, make sure those are nice and securely attached. Once those are dry, we're going to add another anchor point on the opposite side of the rocket. We're going to do that with another piece of Kevlar string. We're going to glue that in place, put a little bit of glue on the knot to make sure that it's secure. Then we're going to take the parachute and attach it to just an obscenely long portion of shock cord that we're going to tie into the main shock cord that we already mounted into the rocket. And then we need 2 anchors on the bottom of the rocket, one for the elastic cord to pull it in the candy cane shape, and the other one to anchor the burn string once it passes through the body tube. So we're going to tie another piece of Kevlar string to the bottom there for that. Then next we'll burn the actual hole for the burn strings to pass through right in front of the motor there to catch that ejection charge and hopefully burn it through. We'll come back and clean it up with the knife and the file here. We did also come back and reinforce that with some CA glue. Then we're going to put 2 launch lugs on this, just make sure we have a nice straight takeoff given the wonkiness in the top. We're going to put one of those right up against the fin and then another one right above that top vent there. We're going to use a sort of shish kebab skewer here to get alignment. For the nacelles or pods, we're going to go ahead and put a hole in the bottom of each of those. The one where we're going to mount the streamer for recovery of it, we're going to anchor in pretty firmly. The other one we're just going to tie to that ends up being the shroud to release the parachute. We're going to tie those on, put the initial anchor on the one. We'll come back, apply another reinforcement on that. Then we're going to attach the streamer using some packing tape. Again, we made this streamer extra long. I picked this reflective streamer because it kind of looked like candy cane in and of itself. Then we're going to come back and sort of burnish the streamer's attachment to that cord just to make sure it stays. Using the fine piece of Kevlar tied to the bottom of each of these nacelles, we're going to set the distance there with it going against the fin, make sure it stays out of the engine and exhaust but doesn't pull too tightly. And then we'll tie that down and trim it to shape. Unfortunately, all the cameras autofocus lost it in the clouds, so we don't see it coming down as a candy cane shape, but we can see it here on the ground in the shape of a candy cane. I will say it came down so slow that the parachute didn't unravel. It really wasn't tangled. You can see that it's super tightly packed there. So next time, maybe we'll just try a streamer. And it's a Merry Christmas from all of us here at A Little Loud Labs to you.